In a previous video, I discussed and illustrated how to use the read method using Python. When you use the read method, this function reads the entire file and returns a string. In this particular video, I'm going to discuss the readline method. In this particular function method, it reads lines from that file and returns it as a string. There's also another method in Python called the readlines. This function returns a list where each element is a single line of that file. So you may want to go back and relook at the other videos concerning the read method. In this example, I will use the readline method, which is designed to read one line at a time. We're going to use an example called the test scores report, and we wish to create a function that will open the file for reading, calculate the test score average, and then write the results to a file. These are the subtasks that we will be creating in this particular example. Once this entire project or illustration has been completed, you will have 4 different files. The original file that is your source code. So this is where your source code will exist. That is the main function. And the program is going to read the data from this file. This is the file that we are reading data from. So we're reading data from this particular file. Therefore, in this illustration, by the time we finished all of our tasks, you're going to have your original source code that contains your main function. We're going to take all the functions that you created and we're going to place them in its own file so that they can be reused for other files or other programs. You will have a data file where the data is read from, and you're going to have a file where your output is written. The reason for all that is because a lot of times, as soon as you run programs or you create your apps or whatever, you'll see results showing up on your monitor, your screen. Sometimes you do not want that to show up because it's confidential, or it's so much of it that you want to store it in another particular container. And in this case, the container is going to be that of another file. That way you can go and call up that file, etc. Okay, so let's get started. Let's carefully look at the pseudocode to read test scores from a file, calculate an average, and write the results to a file. That's the main objective here. So you're going to have a main function where you initialize your variables used to reference or store the data objects. You will call the function to open a file for reading the test scores. You're going to call a function to write the results to a file. Write the report heading. Read the first line from the file. This is called, we're using this as our loop control variable that controls the loop, or our priming read, which means this is your initial read. While the line that you're reading from that file is not empty, we're going to convert the line to a float data type. Remember, when we use the read line, using the read line method, it always reads each line as a string data type, a string of characters. Okay. So make sure that you understand that. That's why if I'm reading some numbers or a score, I want to convert it to a float because I want to perform some kind of math computations on that particular object. Count each score, keep a running sum or total of the score. And the reason that we're doing that is because we want to calculate an average. We're going to write the test score to the output file. We're going to read the next line from the data file. I have to traverse or navigate from one score to the next. Here's what the data file is going to look like. It's going to be a text data file, and it has a list of scores. This is what's in the test scores external file. So when we say read the first line, it gets the first line and it moves down and reads, and then of course it converts that particular score to a float data type. It counts it, keeps a running sum, writes the test score to another file, and then now we read the next line. So when we use this next read statement, that's what tells the computer to navigate or move down to the next line to read the next line. And once all of this is done, we're going to call the function to calculate the average test score. And what we will need to pass to this function is the total of the test scores and the count. That's what we call our parameters, or the arguments that are needed in this function in order for it to calculate the average test score. Write the test score to the output file. We have to close the input file, close the output file. By the way, there are other statements that allow you to do this easier by using the with clause, but we wish to show you this method first so you understand some of the advantages to using this method versus some of the other more shortcut, or maybe in some cases efficient methods. We will end the main function. Next, we're going to outline the subtasks for opening the file for reading. You have to ask the user to enter the name of the file. Why would I do that when in the textbook it talks about, it just displays the names? The reason for that is that anytime you are entering something into the computer, the user, the program is much more efficient, or it is more flexible, because that file name may change, and if it does, you can put that particular file name in via the keyboard versus having it embedded in the code. We store the file name as an object to open for reading, check to make sure the file exists, and then we end this sub function to open the file for reading. The next sub function is used to open the file for writing. Ask the user to enter the file name for writing the output. Store the file name as an object to open the file for writing, and then we end that sub function to open file for writing. And the last sub function we're going to use in this example is the one that is designed to calculate the test average using the total and count as formal parameters or arguments. The result is going to be the total divided by the average. We return the result. We end the function to calculate the test score average. The last thing is that we're going to call the main and end this main program module that is designed to analyze or calculate the scores. So this is the outline or the pseudocode for reading test scores from a file, calculating an average, and writing the results to that file. And again, we're using the readline method. It is so important. I know a lot of times we want to just go and write the code, but you really do need to understand what you're doing and why. What's the rationale for doing this? The most important skill that you can learn in programming is to create functions. From there, you'll be able to learn how to do any of the other tasks that involves computer programming. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to transform all of this to the actual code using Python.